You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. The First Amendment's right to free speech has limits. You also can't slander someone or libel them and claim free speech because it was just your opinion. There are limits to free speech. Unless, of course, you're Harlan Crow, and then you can do whatever you want. Today's Supreme Court decision on President Trump and his immunity from prosecution proved what we already knew, that the Supreme Court are a bunch of partisan hacks who will do anything to protect Republican power, up to and including twisting the Constitution so drastically that it starts to look more like Mein Kampf than the U.S. Constitution. Today, the Roberts Court placed itself in history as making the most bald-faced decision based on political power and party since Dred Scott. There has not been a decision this ridiculous since ruling that slaves are property and not people. And look who rendered that decision. A man whose wife actively participated in the fake electors scheme and did not recuse himself for a conflict of interest. He's too good a partisan hack to do that. In addition, we have a justice who proudly flies the flags of the insurrection, declaring himself a sympathizer, and did not recuse himself. That's 2 tarnished votes. And then they would be down to 4. As predicted, Justice Barrett did not go along fully with the majority. She dissented from Part 3 of their decision and joined the liberal justices. That would have been a 4-3 majority in that section. But of course, the 2 criminals were allowed to sit and vote. And not only did the court make baseless assertions of immunity, but they pulled a 2-step to ensure that the Trump case has solid basis for appeal before the trial even begins. It's brilliant partisan hackery, and it's a disgrace. First, the ruling itself. In a 6-3 ruling, the court ruled that any sitting president has absolute immunity while performing his role as president. Absolute immunity. They state, at least with respect to the president's exercise of his core constitutional powers, this immunity must be absolute. As for his remaining official actions, he is also entitled to immunity, and the immunity should be presumptive. And why does the president have absolute immunity? Where does it say this in the Constitution? It doesn't. Nonetheless, the majority ruled that the president has absolute immunity while performing the core constitutional role of president because, in their opinion, a president must be able to take bold and unhesitating action. So the court specifically ruled that all of Trump's nonsense, trying to get the Justice Department to do his bidding and help overturn the election, was all within the executive branch and is immune. So then what about trying to order Pence to toss out the electoral vote and throw it to the states? Today's ruling says, that's a sticky one. Throw that back to the district court. And that's where they really play into Trump's hands. Now the district court is going to have to rule on whether specific acts were official or unofficial acts, and then if they rule against the defendant, then he can appeal it up and get it tossed, or take it to the Supreme Court if the ruling goes against him. Obviously, no one is hoping this can get done before the election anymore. And here, the words of Justice Sotomayor need to be applied. A president's use of any official power for any purpose, even the most corrupt, is immune from prosecution. That is just as bad as it sounds, and it's baseless. The majority of justices don't even care if there is evidence against a sitting president. Sotomayor writes, the majority declares that evidence concerning acts for which the president is immune can play no role in any criminal prosecution against him. This is a stunning ruling, and one that's worth quoting Sotomayor again. She states, today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principle, foundational to our Constitution and system of government, that no one is above the law. And it is Justice Jackson which addresses the ridiculousness of this ruling by bringing in the absurd argument the Trump defense team brought forward. The argument everyone laughed at, but the majority just affirmed. Jackson writes, even a hypothetical president who admits to having ordered the assassinations of his political rivals or critics, or one who indisputably instigates an unsuccessful coup, has a fair shot at getting immunity under the majority's new presidential accountability model. And so the clown show of criminal prosecution for the con man from Queens continues. A corrupt judge in Florida is overseeing the case where Trump committed crimes after being president, and a corrupt Supreme Court giving Trump immunity for crimes while he was president. Trump's age-old tactic of playing the long game and having the crony save you has worked yet again. Heck, with this Supreme Court, Trump could have stuck with Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and still won. Except for the fact that they don't have a law license anymore. The irony here, of course, is that the Supreme Court's ruling to protect former presidents is actually a protection that only Democrats need, because it's only Trump and immoral Republicans like, Cancun Cruz, who would try and throw former presidents in jail. Now, theoretically, the court has just protected Joe Biden. But for all you MAGA Republicans worried that Biden won't get thrown in jail like Trump promised, fear not. This crony court will ultimately find you a way. Prior to today, my feeling was that Judge Juan Merchan was probably going to play sentencing on the conservative side and not put Trump in jail. I even thought he might get creative and hand Trump a jail sentence, a small one, but have Trump report after the election. Now, however, it is imperative for Merchan to secure justice for this country and throw Trump in jail, and to throw the book at him. We live in a country with a two-tier system of justice. White-collar crime committed by white men get treated very gently by the criminal justice system, whereas black men get thrown in jail very easily. Trump committed white-collar crime, and he's a first-time criminal. So theoretically, there is precedent for him not to go to jail. And indeed, that two-tier system favoring white people is so ingrained in the legal system that if Merchan does issue jail time, there's a solid basis for appeal. Solid. But this is the issue for Judge Merchan. And no, it's not that Trump is orange and not white. Trump committed election fraud for the presidency of the United States. The punishment must be of a magnitude that it prevents others from doing the same thing, stealing the presidency, or at least attempting to. This is of a magnitude that justifies a first-time offender going to jail, even if they're white. Merchan must throw the book at him, because the Supreme Court of this country is no longer interested in justice. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.